So, welcome everybody and good evening. I'm Nancy, as Lalit said, and I'm from Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And something unique about where I live is there's a lot of projects that will spin up with major companies here, and they'll look for contract testers. So most of my experience has been working for companies on a high pressure project, doing testing in various roles. Sometimes the projects are more aggressive, sometimes they're more laid back. So I've got this interesting mix of years of experience in all these different fields. And something I've learned that's a common theme that often causes me to fail is I try to fix all the projects I'm on or the organizations I'm in, because I'm only there for 2 years, maybe a year and a half, and then I'm on to the next company. So I get in there and I go, there's a lot broken here. How can I fix it? And not all projects want to be fixed. So that's where this presentation's come from today. When I was younger and in my early years, I was very keen and very excited to get into these projects and wanted to, like I said, fix them. And after a few failed attempts, I realized not all projects want to be fixed. They're dysfunctional, and that's the way the organization works. And that's what they do when they do the projects in these companies. And I can't change that, especially if I'm only there for a year or 2 years on a very specific project. There's usually deeper issues in the company that doesn't allow me to make the change that I want. So I wanted to share some of my most profound project fix failures with everyone today. And it's hard to talk about when we fail, but I'm putting on my brave face and going to give this a try. So the first one that came to mind when I was asked to do the conference was a project I was on for a SCADA control system. So does anyone know what SCADA is and what they do? Give me a thumbs up if you're familiar with that term. So this project in particular was controlling all the electricity for the province that I'm in, Alberta. And of course, if you know how electricity works, it kind of is connected throughout all of Canada and into the US. So we were on this system to replace the main system that controlled all the power and put a new system in, which means there's no downtime. I can't tell everybody in my country, hey, we're going to shut off the power in Western Canada so we can roll out this new version of software. That's not something we can do. So we had to change the software out while it was running. And there were two aspects to this project. There was implementing the middleware, which was where I started. I was the test lead of the TIBCO implementation, which was connecting all of their systems together to this main system that was going to be implemented. So we rolled out TIBCO. It was a great project. I had such success. I was really excited about how that project went. We had an amazing team. And after that project had ended, my contract was set to end. But however, they said, you know, Nancy, we're really having trouble on the bigger SCADA control system implementation. The test lead there isn't doing a great job. She's not really doing what we need her to do. We want you to come in. And I saw this as a promotion. I thought, yes, I did great on this smaller project. Now I'm being promoted to being the test lead of the big project. And what they told me on my way into the new role was that this was the third test lead they had that hadn't worked out. They fired the first one. The second one ended up quitting because of stress, and they were going to move the third one into something different because all these test leads were doing a terrible job. They were failing everything they did. And that should have been a warning sign for me. But again, I was on this big high of finishing this other project, because when you're the fourth test lead, because the 3 previous ones were fired, it isn't a test lead problem. It's a project problem. And I didn't know until my first day that I was set up to fail. I walked in, I was all tall and ready to go and said, you know, guys, I'm going to do great. I'm not going to fail you. I went through what they were doing, and by the end of that day, I had my head in my hands and was going, oh my gosh, I'm going to be the 4th test lead they fire because this project isn't set up for success. And what I learned in this one was that I needed to shift from trying to fix everything on the project to just surviving if I wanted to stick around. So my personality to say, hey, I'm going to fix it, I'm going to solve all your problems, I had to put away and say, nope, I'm going to switch to just survival mode. And ended up switching to that. It was very bumpy. We rolled it out the door. But that was the first time I kind of went, my fixing personality is going to get me in trouble. After that project ended, I rolled into a different project. This one was a big ERP system replacement. So everybody's heard of SAP before, right? This was replacing SAP. So we were going to take an older version of SAP and we were going to put a newer version in. And when I went in there, I realized there was lots of issues here too. And what the problems were was that this team didn't look very far ahead. They would deal with everything that was on their plate this week, and even their most senior leadership were just looking at the problems this week. Anything else a week out or 2 weeks out or 3 weeks out or months out, even when I would say, this could be a problem for go live was a year away. Nobody was worried about it. And I walked into this and found it very chaotic. How do you run a multi-million-dollar project just looking to the end of the week? And so I started to make a risk log of everything that I saw, all the risks, all the issues. I started to say, here's the plan we need in place to solve these from the testing perspective, because I was the test manager, so I couldn't fix all the project issues. And I started to argue with leadership, and it almost got me fired. I could see these disasters that were going to come and hit us, and no one else could see them. And they didn't take that information and go, this is great, Nancy. We were really worried about this too. Instead, they took the information and saw me as causing trouble, always looking at the negative, not being a team player and not saying, rah, rah, we can get this done. I was becoming this huge roadblock for this project because they weren't ready to see what I was seeing. And because I'm quite passionate about testing, I would argue with them. No, guys, you have to see what's happening here. This is a big problem. We're going to get in trouble later on. And all they heard was, Nancy's not doing what we ask. Nancy's worried about things that don't matter. Nancy's throwing up all these things that aren't even problems yet. It's not a big deal, Nancy. It's not a problem yet. They didn't want to look as far ahead. And I realized I needed to slow down to speed up, because otherwise I was probably not going to have a job. So what I started to do was hold back anything that wasn't going to be an issue this week and wait until the week it would be an issue. And that slight shift on when I would communicate what I was seeing had a huge change for how I was seen on the project. Now I was seen as being proactive, looking ahead, bringing things up so we could deal with them, which was funny because the only thing it changed was when I would bring it up. Not what, not how, not why, just when. Instead of saying in a month, I would go, okay, what is this going to hit us by Friday? Nope. Let's reevaluate it next week. Is it going to hit us by Friday next week? Probably. Okay, Monday, bring that one up. But not today, because it's Tuesday of the week previously. So wait till next Monday. Huge difference that made. And I didn't end up getting fired. It was close, but I managed to stick it out. My latest failure, I had a different one on this slide until just this week when I was contacted by a recruiter. So when in Alberta here, or kind of in Canada as well, if you're looking for a new job, or even if you're not, they'll get these contracts that come up and people will reach out and say, hey, are you interested in having this new role? Message me and see what's happening. So I've been called a couple times by this company. They had called me about 2 months ago and said, hey, we have this potential role. Are you interested? I said, sure, I'd like to learn more. And they called me back and said, no, we found somebody. We're going to move on. Great. Okay, that's fine. Because my current contract goes until July. So then they called me again last week and said, hey, the person we hired didn't work out. We'd like to talk to you about the role. And if you remember the story a few slides back, there were 3 test leads that were fired and I was the 4th. It kind of twigged a reminder for me when they said, the previous person we hired didn't work out. That's a warning. I learned that from my failure before. So I said, yeah, I'll have a conversation with you. I'll talk to you about your project. So we had an interview. It was an hour long, which is typical. It was over Skype because, of course, everybody's remote right now, and this project's actually in a different part of Canada. So they started to describe the project for me. And there were two people that were interviewing me, and they were talking about how they had 130 integrations to this large ERP system they were implementing, and they had 15 weeks to test these. And so far, they've done 5 weeks of testing, and it's not going good at all. They were saying they don't have enough time for testing. They were saying that the testers they were using were very good in the ERP application, but not technical. They didn't understand integrations. They didn't understand the downstream systems, how the integrations were built, the technology. So they were really struggling with the test team that they had. They said that they don't have any support from the dev team. They don't get their defects fixed very timely. They also sit for days. I asked a lot of questions. And when she described her project to me and said all the problems, she said, the reason we're looking for someone new is we want someone to come in and fix all this for us. And right away, that little piece of me that loves to fix was jumping up and down inside going, this is perfect. I love to fix things. But all the problems I heard had me worried. So I started to ask some really pointed questions. So how do we get the testers trained? Can we replace that team? What are the options to maybe take a pause, have everybody learn what they need to learn, and get them going again? And the answers to those questions were, no, we won't get time from the developers to help with train. There's no way we can stop. That would look bad. And the testers, well, they've given up trying to help get them up to speed and understand. They've tried, it hasn't worked, so that's not really going to be something they entertain. Okay, I thought that was interesting. So I said, okay, well, if we don't have enough time to test, could we put more time on the project? Can we throw more money at this to hire different people, addition to what we have now? No, we won't get more time. No, we won't get more money. I thought it was weird. You want me to come in and fix things, but all the suggestions I'm giving you just in this interview are all met with no, 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 no. So I pushed some more and said, does leadership know about the problems we have? So the lady interviewing me was in charge of testing, but did the project sponsors, did the senior management of this company know that this project was at risk? And her answer was, no. My status report is still green. I don't want to flip it to yellow because I've promised that we can do this, and I'm not ready to renege on my promise. And at that point, my previous failure lesson said, Nancy, don't take this job. If you do, you're going to be the next tester to fail, because she wasn't ready to say she'd made a mistake. I was ready to say, hey, this is going to be tough for me. I'm willing to jump on here, but I needed my boss's support. And she wasn't ready to put her hand up. Like all of us are so brave here today. We put our hands up and go, I've messed up. I made a mistake. She wasn't ready. And I couldn't make her do that. I couldn't push her to do that. So when the recruiter phoned back and said, Nancy, they want to hire you. Are you interested in the job? I said, no. This project is set up to fail. The lady that's in charge of testing needs to realize she's made a mistake and put her hand up and say, I need help. Until they're ready to do that, whoever you bring in next, whether it's me or someone else, isn't going to be set up for success. They're going to fail, and I don't want that to be me. So that was my failure. If I would have taken the job, I would have failed again. So walked away from that opportunity, told them I wish you luck. When you fail again, it'll take probably 3 or 4 months to try to do something again, see that what you're doing isn't working. Reach out to me then, and I'll have a conversation with them if they're willing to change and take some of the suggestions. So it was interesting, and the timing was perfect. I had this conference to speak at. I was looking for failures, and this one just magically appeared. So it was a great one to be able to tell today. So if you're a fixer like me, like to come in the door and go, hey, I have some ideas. And when you go to conferences like this, you get a lot of ideas. So you may go back to work tomorrow and go, hey, I've got these great ideas from this conference. And remember, sometimes they don't want you to fix things. And for me, I found I get very frustrated when people don't want to fix things. So how I deal with my fixer frustration is I've created a tool that I use. It's very simple. It's a notebook. It looks like this. I had them printed up at one point to remind me to have something tangible to remind me that, hey, if you're frustrated because people aren't listening to you, remember your notebook, Nancy. And what I do with this notebook, it's kind of funny, is I use it to help deal with my frustration. And it's very, very simple. I just take notes. So that's a copy of the inside picture, the inside cover of the notebook. So what I do is I write down what I'm frustrated about. What's the problem that this organization has that I want to document, that I've tried to fix, that I can't make any progress on? So I answer all the questions, and that's just a printout of the inside cover that reminds me of what to include in my entry. I date it. I write down the situation. So here's what I'm seeing happening in this organization. I write down what I tried to do about it. I write down who I talked to. What did I say when I talked about it? What did I recommend the fix was? And what decision did the company take? Whether it was an actual decision where they say to me, Nancy, we've heard you and we've decided, no, we're not doing that. Or if the decision was just through inaction. So I've suggested it, I've asked people to help, I'm getting no traction. That's a decision as well. When people don't do something, they're making a decision. They're not going to do anything about it. So I write the decision in there. I write down what I think is going to happen, because remember I said previously, I'm always looking a week or 2 or a month or 6 months ahead. So what do I think this is going to land in time? And any other details. And then the most important piece of this notebook is after I've entered my entry, after I've put everything in there, poured my heart out into the book, I turn the page. And when I turn the page, I make a conscious decision to say, Nancy, you're not going to let this issue bother you anymore. You've done everything that you can. You've talked to who you need. The decision's been taken. Turn the page. It's behind you. Move on. And at first I thought it was a little weird, a little kooky. Why would she do that? But it actually helped. It helped me to say, hey, I'm putting this behind me. I'm moving forward. I'm not going to worry or stress about this anymore. It's captured in my book. I'm good to just continue on. And I was at one conference and someone said, do you use it to say, I told you so? Do you pull that out in a month or 2 months or 6 months when your predictions come true and go, I told you, look, I wrote it down? Sometimes I don't recommend that because it kind of gets you in hot water, but I do reflect back on it and go, this is interesting. This is interesting how this turned out. It's interesting what ended up happening. It's interesting where this took us. And it's caused me to reflect on, when I see something, is there ways to maybe position it differently? Because when it came to fruition and I have all my notes, what was different? What did I learn from that? So I don't always use the I told you so, but there's times where you want to, but you have to hold back. So if you've got time for one last story, one way I've managed to also deal with my fixing frustration is to sneak solutions into issues without anyone noticing. So when there's a problem and I'm saying, hey, we could try this, we could try that, but it's not tangible, there's no this particular thing and this is particular fix, it's more overarching or how we're running things, it doesn't always take traction because it's too abstract. So sometimes I've been able to sneak solutions in when it's a specific problem. Nancy, we're having a problem with our defects. Okay, I have a solution that I can sneak in there that actually solves a bigger problem, but I can scale it down really small, fix the defect problem, and then hopefully that will get traction and I can use that same solution to fix other things. So that's another little tidbit I want to leave you with. If you're trying to fix things and you're frustrated, no one's interested, look to see if you can scale it down really small, sneak in that little bit of solution in one area, because I find when people see traction and positive change in one place, they're more willing to change in another place, because this one we changed and it worked okay. What if we change this other little one or this other little one? And they start to get traction that way. So I wanted to make sure I left some time for questions or comments or just even an open session. So That's all I had to share for stories and failures today. Hopefully this presentation wasn't a failure.
Thank you so much. Yes,
Hi, Lee. Welcome
I
back.
can personally relate to
Welcome.
lots of interesting things that you shared. We have a question for you. How to identify the
Mhm.
projects designed for failure?
How to identify the ones for failure that are going to fail?
Yeah, more or less. How do you predict failures, or what are
Oh,
the signs you look for, perhaps?
um, I guess when they start blaming testing is a
Mm-hmm.
big red flag for me. So,
Mm-hmm.
as testers, we just tell you where problems are. We don't make the problems. We don't purposely test slower when there's lots of problems. We run into things and it slows us down. Logging bugs slows us down. Retesting bugs slows us down. Regression testing after a bug slows us down. And we do plan for that. But if your project is really not of got great quality, the requirements weren't understood, it's a complex, complicated project, it's hard to get everything right.
Mm-hmm.
So when people start saying testing's taking too long, what is the test team doing? Why are they finding all these issues? If they don't see it as a positive, they see us as a negative, dragging them down, slowing them down. That's when I'm worried that the project may be starting to get on that track to fail. They don't want to look at the real issues. It's easy to blame the testers because we're the noisy ones, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I start to go, is this project really set up for success? How do I change that perception to say, it's not testing that's a problem? Our dev isn't been great. We didn't understand the requirements. We have didn't know what we were building. Maybe we need to prototype this a bit so that everyone understands what we're trying to do here and then move forward from that rather than saying it's done, giving it to the test team, them saying it's not done, throwing it back. Let's work together, prototype, start to see that there's more than just a testing issue, there's a schedule issue, there could be a resource issue. What are the actual problems? Because unless we're not testing, testing really isn't a problem.
Mm-hmm. And
So that's what I
Nancy,
found.
how do you decide that okay, you tried enough and now it's time to stop?
I guess when people stop seeing it as a positive. So when I start to hear, Nancy, you're always so negative. Why are you bringing up all these issues? Then I know they're not hearing it anymore. They've got too much or it's not important and I need to just kind of back away from that and let's see where it goes before I bring it up again.
Cool. Thank you so much. And